So hi folks, as I promised in the last video, I'm back here with a new video on properly running in your new motorcycle. Okay, so I know this topic is overrated and controversial at the same time. It is as controversial as it can get, and maybe there are thousands of conflicting opinions out there on the internet on how to get this right. There are some who say that you should baby the engine, there are some who say that you should ride the motorcycle within the manufacturer's specified rev range, and there are still others who will tell you that you should thrash the throttle open and redline the motorcycle in every gear from the time the motorcycle leaves the showroom. So when it comes to the topic of running in the engine of your new motorcycle, there will always be this expert somewhere on the internet who's going to tell you that these procedures were applicable 50 years back when every engine component was hand finished, and that the instructions in the manual hasn't evolved over time, and that these instructions are not applicable to our motorcycles today, where each component is precision machined in the assembly line. So now, to an extent, this expert may be right, but he's not entirely right. You ask why? Look, even if the components today are manufactured in the assembly line with high precision robots controlled by $1 million microprocessors hidden somewhere, there can and there always will be that marginal error every now and then, that small microscopic bump or that very fine linear ridge left behind from the machining process. And these are small imperfections that need to be ironed out properly in order to make for an engine that's going to last you. Alright, so now let's come back to the actual running and procedure of the engine. And as I was saying earlier, that there are several conflicting opinions about braking procedures. One of them is the race method, where you thrash the motorcycle from day one. That is, you redline the motorcycle in every gear and also downshift very aggressively. So now this might work for motorcycles used in racing, where after every race or a couple of races at least, the engine they will be worked upon or simply discarded. But this definitely is not the method, guys, which are applicable to bikes which will be used normally for commuting or touring or having the occasional fun on the questions. What you want here from your motorcycle is reliability and a decent motor to keep you entertained for the life of the motorcycle. So there is this other method that I see popping up here and there whenever I read about engine braking procedures, is that you should be overly cautious and that you should baby your bike during the running period. This method, guys, I would advise you to steer clear of this method too, as what they mean here is that you should keep the revs as low as possible. So people, that's not how the break-in procedure is meant to be done. In fact, you would be doing more harm to the engine if you lug the motor in low revs at a higher gear than riding at a relatively higher revs at a lower gear. So now, to put things into perspective, ask yourself this simple question. If you ride a geared bicycle, what would be easier? Pulling from a low speed at a higher gear or pulling from a low speed at a relatively lower gear? Obviously your legs would be sore after you tried to accelerate from standstill in 6 or 7 gear. Now just replace your legs with the cylinder piston and you should have a fair idea of what I'm talking about here. So before you roll, keep your motorcycle on idle for at least 2 minutes. So now the primary aim of this, more than just warming up the machine, is for the engine oil to circulate inside the cylinder and the crankcase so that you already have a well lubricated engine and gearbox to start with. So now, once you have warmed up the engine sufficiently, just ride normally, keeping the revs within the specified rev range, transitioning between higher and lower revs. And people, when RE says that you should keep within 4000 revs, they don't mean that you should constantly ride at 4000 RPM. Use the entire rev range and work your way up and down the gearbox. And also make it a point to take brief stops in between riding. Do not ride the motorcycle for more than an hour at a stretch. This is a new engine, everything is tight inside, and because of that, new engines heat up quite a bit. So take brief stops, enjoy the view, have a cup of tea, look at the beautiful motorcycle for a while, and then just get back on the bike and enjoy your ride again. So friends, now that the first 500 kilometers are over, this is going to be the time your motorcycle will have its first oil change. It is also going to be the time when you'll want to take the motorcycle out on the highways and push it a little bit further. So yes, do take the motorcycle for longer spins, but keep in mind to keep the revs within 6000 RPMs now. And 6000 revs for the Interceptor in 5th or 6th gear, guys, will achieve you speeds well over 95 to 100 kilometers per hour. So yes, you will be safely riding your motorcycle at highway speeds, all while running in the new engine properly. So that, I think, covers pretty much everything that there is to running in the Interceptor. So be a little patient for the first 2000 kilometers and you should end up with a motorcycle that is fun to ride, powerful, and most importantly, reliable.